do is just to give you something to take away and apply to your business and apply to your people, that can help create a better experience than you already provide. So that being the primary goal for today.
So I hope that if we ask some questions, maybe you guys would be a little bit interactive too. I would hate to sit here and just yell stuff at you. If nothing else, take it from the concept of like role playing and practicing. When you give presentations, right, we're taught to ask questions, not necessarily just give statements. Telling isn't really selling. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of put us in the frame of mind, right? Our agents just went through Bold 2.0. And in Bold, they were stretched to get 200 contacts in a week, which is something that we've never taught, right? We've never been held accountable to, and we've never done. But they all did it, right? So that told them that was possible. But when we asked them what they got out of Bold, everybody replied with mindset. So for the leaders in the room, the leaders on the call, that tells me that it all starts right here between our ears. So I want to challenge you guys to think a little bit about customer experience. Think a little bit about staying top of mind. As a consumer, somebody share what makes a great customer experience to you? What makes an awesome experience when you're on the receiving end of service?
Communication.
Communication. Right? I see some heads nodding. Communication, that's a good one.
On
the brand new side?
Yep. Consistently meeting or exceeding expectations. Like, a clear picture of what I'm going to get, and then I get it.
Okay.
Tom Seaman says they remember your name, what's important to you, some unique things about you.
Okay. That's good. I love all of those, right? Expectations, communication, right? Being memorable. Maybe we have some sort of a differentiation factor that differentiates us from every other agent. And see, just those things right there is exactly some of the notes that I have written down, right? When we're giving these experiences, that's truly what the market is demanding. So being a keeper of the information is not good enough to separate you from the other thousands of agents that are competing for these opportunities, right? It's what experience are you giving them? Okay, so communication is a good one. How do we communicate, right? If they are maybe in the demographic of a retiree, should we be texting them? Maybe, maybe not. How do we know? Do we ask them, hey, what's your preferred style of communication? When's the best time to usually reach you? Do you prefer email, text, call for an update for, whatever the case is in the process, right? And so when we ask them, what are we doing? We're extracting their expectations. Because if we don't know what their expectations are, I mean, if you were to ask Scott, like, hey, can you sell real estate? That's a tough question because it's like, yeah, but what kind, where, to who, how? Is it land? Is it dirt? Is it new construction? Like, I need to know what direction to apply my services to fulfill your expectations. Okay. So as we're thinking of that, right, is that how we take our approach to our conversations? Is that how we take our approach to the presentations and the clients that we're trying to earn the opportunities with? Okay. So when we say give them the best possible experience in real estate, that's what my job is. That's what I am out to do. So when we talk about how do they remember us, what honestly goes through my mind, especially in the beginning, is I have to make this conversation a better conversation than they will ever have with any other agent that they ever talk to about real estate. That is my personal challenge. And that might be a little bit different than like trying to get a deal or trying to get them to say yes or trying to close for the appointment, right? So how do we have that competitive edge where I know that I have one shot, one at bat and I have to give this experience better than when they call the next agent or the listing agent or somebody calls them because they went through an open house. That to me is my barometer. Okay, that's where it all starts. So as we're kind of thinking through this, right? When you are remembered that way, people like to hear from you. It's an intriguing conversation. It's an interesting conversation. So when you're reaching out to be top of mind and you're delivering value, what are we always afraid of? Oh, I don't want a high pressure. Or I don't want to annoy people, right? Have you guys ever felt that way? Show of hands. Of course we have. It's part of sales, right? We're in the numbers game. We have to feel that way sometimes. Heat check. And so when we want to alleviate some of those things, it's because we want to really drive the value. And that will take the pressure off of you being annoying. Because it's tried and true, and it comes from the right place. And guys, no matter who you're talking to, it could be a spouse, it could be an agent, it could be family, anybody. When it comes from the right place, people genuinely, they can feel that, right? We all have been gifted with some level of intuition. Okay. And so the customer experience, when does that start? Let me ask that question. Anybody on the call, anybody in the room, when does the customer experience start?
I would assume at the first time you talk to them.
Yeah. First time we talk to them. And when does it end?
Never.
That's right. It doesn't. So that was kind of like a mindset thing, right? Let's talk through some practical tools. When it comes to a blown out customer experience, we know what that looks like from the lens of our own personal experiences. How do we apply that to real estate? How do we apply that to maybe talking to a buyer or a seller? It's going to come out in our scripts, right? Of course, we're going to have different scripts for the different objectives that we want. Okay. Raving Fans is one of the best books that as a team we have read and studied and implemented as a tool. Yeah, go ahead. You could explain
every year.
Customer service.
We read this with our team every year. We always have new agents or new staff members that are joining us, and that book has become a baseline for kind of how we think about customer service. We read about Disney. We read about some of these really great companies that are known for their service and their servant's heart, really, and going above and beyond for their people. So studying some of the things that really allow us to think differently about our business and think differently about the people that we are serving and how to make it the best experience for them. I know, Scott, you had a question about how to get them to open up. So I tend to be a little bit more of like the counselor or the communicating one with our clients. And really, people are very simple. I think sometimes agents, we can be our own worst enemy and we can overthink things. They really just want someone to understand them and to make them feel like we care and are going to help them achieve whatever goal it is that they have. So a lot of times I ask, if it's at an open house, what brought you through today? Where are you coming from? Where do you live now? Why are you curious about this home or curious about buying a home? Just kind of asking some of those forward questions, what has changed in maybe their family dynamic or their job dynamic. Also having an awareness of, especially right now, having a lot of sensitivity towards some of the stressors of COVID or the economy or some of the social aspects that are happening here in the United States. So just being sensitive and being approachable. If you come directly to them, at least this is my experience, and everybody operates differently and everybody has different personalities, but if you come to them directly with sales and selling a house or buying a house or all about business, it's really hard for those people to make that personal connection, which is what drives that service piece. So we really focus on, and it was just taught through Bold for the last month, the Ford approach. So asking them what's important to them as people, because we know home ownership is a part of achieving a personal goal. And so tethering that all together.
So questions, right? One thing that we've applied to all of our buyer consultations and listing consultations are from raving fans, you know. So tell me a little bit about what you know about the real estate market. Tell me a little bit about your expectations for this process. How do you, in your mind, what is the perfect vision for purchasing a home? And then the ultimate battle is who's going to speak first. Right? So we want to make sure that we use silence, and it's so uncomfortable. It takes some practice. So we want to use silence. And usually they're going to struggle to find their words, right? Because they don't really know. Maybe sometimes they've had a bad experience, or they've sold many houses in the past, or maybe they were at FSBO at one time, something along those lines. But when we can get them talking, and we can ask a follow-up question. So tell me a little bit more about that. Why is that important to you? You know, then they usually will lead you right to what's valuable. And then being a consummate professional on the other side means you're prepared, means you know the market, you know your scripts, you know your rebuttals, you know the conversation that you're having, and you know your audience. You can wrap your service around exactly what they're showing you is valuable. You can tie it down. You can isolate it, right? Because then it's a lot easier for me to knock those few hot buttons out of the park when I've solidified them with that particular client. So this brings me to a little bit of our next point, which is one thing that we are doing is a trend that I see among consumer behavior is people are attracted to, and they are frankly expecting, personal service. Okay? Personal service. Does anybody want to take a stab at the definition that I'm thinking of, or that I'm alluding to when I say personal service?
Talked about earlier, just kind of like tailoring it to who they are and what's important to them.
Yes, Andrew, very good. Mike?
I was just going to say, making my experience feel like it's one of one.
Yes, exactly, right? So what does that look like in our lives, right? Here's what I think of. You know, Mike, your Amazon homepage looks different than mine, but it's still Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scott's Netflix, riddled with golf and football, right? Looks different than mine, but it's still Netflix, right? Same service provider providing personal service. So how does that translate to what we're doing? Well, if somebody's an investor client, do we give them the same presentation that we give a first-time home buyer?
No.
Very different conversation.
Sure. So the reason I'm saying that is because we're talking about top of mind, right? That comes through with our updates. That comes through with the materials that we share. That comes through with the tools that we share. That comes through with our cadence of follow-up. So what makes all those things different, right? It's what the client is expecting, is that personal touch, because truly, they don't care about anything except, how does this affect me? How does this help me accomplish what I want to accomplish? So if you have an initial consultation with an investor, it might not be a bad touch to send them hold. Right? Hey, here's a tool. Hey, here's a book. I mean, does that differentiate yourself from other agents that maybe they've talked to about investments over the phone? Every time they look at it, they're going to know exactly where it came from. Okay? So that's going to say what? They're going to be like, oh, this guy gets it. It's like, he's listening to me. This wasn't a call-in lead that's like, yeah, do you want to go see this house? Sure, I'll open the door for you. Anybody with a license can do that. right? So when we're doing the personal service, another thing is we have to be so good at our jobs and so good at the process, we kind of have to do the thinking for them. When you are going to buy jewelry or to buy a car or, you know, some sort of consumer experience, how good does it feel for you when they answer the question you have in your mind without you asking it?
Great.
Right? Having that foresight, thinking ahead, grabbing them by the hand and leading them and walking them through. If I can answer questions in their mind and some other agent just asks them about bedrooms and bathrooms, what does that make them feel like when they have a question or when I'm not around?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to be like, no, this guy, he already knew what I was thinking. Like, he probably knows the answer, right? He's probably got this. So that's what we're doing, right? Those are all definitions of service. Here, what's not service? Telling people what they want to hear. Just telling them what we think we need so we could try to get a deal and we could try to get paid, right?
Over-promising.
Yeah, go ahead. Like over-promising, under-delivering, being a yes person, being an order taker. Like, we can't be those things because they can simply just look up stuff online. It's our responsibility to provide that experience. But that's a good challenge. That's a good thing. Because once we do, we should be able to earn a lifetime client. Right? We should be able to breed and earn their loyalty to us as a real estate advisor. Okay, so how do we translate that to what we're doing? Well, has anybody heard of the NAR Generational Trends Report? Yeah, a couple of you guys are nodding your heads. Andrew, I see you. You're like, yeah, I got that. So if we looked at that, and we looked at, for those of you that don't know, you could just Google NAR Generational Trends 2020. And it is basically like a 200 and some page report of graphs and numbers and trends, and it's all survey responses from realtors, from lenders. It's about mortgage, it's about real estate, and from consumers. Okay. And so that's a tool, because if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm familiar with the statistical evidence of the business, our industry, because it's in the United States, and I look at it and I say the number one reason people buy a house, does anybody know it without cheating? And if you don't, that's okay, because I wouldn't have either until somebody taught me this. The number one is desire to own their own home, right? To own a home of their own. Number two is larger house for more space. Number two used to be commute to work. That got bumped down to like number 5. Okay. Number 3 is to be closer proximity to family and friends. Number 4 is a change in family. Could be married, could be children, things like that. Number 5 is now job relocation. So wouldn't it be a great dialogue to say, like, listen, I know that most of the buyers that we're working with, one of their favorite things is they just love owning their own home. Like, this is such an exciting chapter in their life. Or if they're a move-up buyer, you could be like, yeah, of course, like the majority of people we work with are looking for more space. They want more bedrooms, more bathrooms, a long-term forever purchase. Like, is that what you were thinking? Is that how you're feeling? And they might be like, yeah. They might be like, no. But we're playing the averages, right? I mean, we're just going off of the responses. Basically, what I'm saying is I'm not making this stuff up. There's a credible source that's providing me the content to have a high-level quality conversation. So you, as the agent, what are you doing to equip yourself to give a better level experience than before or than any other agent? Because these things are they're all out there for us, right? Could we just Google it? I Googled it. I was like, what's a good experience in real estate? They know a lot, right? but we have to be self-reliant. We have to have some get up and go on our own and be autonomous enough to want to improve, to be better than the other agents that they might have a conversation with. Okay. So aside from that, I mean, the service, how do you stay consistent? That's the next question. What do you guys do to stay consistent? What do you guys do? So we talked about like, okay, well, we want to get in the mindset. We want to give better service than anybody else. And then we talked about some tools and how we can do that, right? How do we stay consistent? Because we might have to follow up with them 7, 10 times. We might follow up for a year, 2 years. And if I got to challenge myself to remember that, that's tough. And I don't really have all the mental energy to try to remember those things when we're doing deals, doing transactions, juggling listings, juggling, you know, all the things that we're catching and driving all at the same time throughout our weeks. It's very fast paced. So I don't want to remember everything. So there's a big word that starts with an S. Who knows what it is?
Just a matter of having systems for follow-up as well as transactions. Probably
My
getting
man, next time,
yeah.
Andrew, you're doing this with me. I'm just kidding. No, you're right. Thank you for your participation, man. I mean, it makes it go so much better. It really means a lot. So thank you. You're right. Having systems, right? Having systems.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
That's where I come in. So systems are really important because they do create that consistency in your processes. And that's the foundational support piece to providing customer experience. What does it look like when a client or a customer comes, when we first meet them, all the way through to after closing, and now we continue to be in relationship with them until the next time that they may need us, or their family needs us, or coworkers need us, things like that. So starting with the initial consultation, if you're not sitting down or scheduling an online meeting or a virtual meeting to get to know your client or potential client, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. Taking the time up front, whether that's an hour, hour and a half, whatever that looks like, depending on if it's a first-time home buyer and they need a little bit more education, or if it's someone that has been through this before and they need more of a refresher and understanding. What does that look like? So our agents and our team, our standard is everybody has a consultation with our clients. We let them know that it's important that we take the time to get to know them and their goals up front so that we can be as proactive with them during their search and helping them hit their goal with whatever motivation that may be. So starting with the conversation and really taking the time. I know things move fast and agents, they'd rather just, let's meet them at the house. Maybe they'll buy that one. Having that conversation up front is what allows us to really strengthen and deepen that relationship. And then once they are a client, what does that look like? So we are very big on being proactive. Reactive is not something that is good for our team. It's not good for our sanity. So being proactive as possible and asking the questions and asking the motivations. And sometimes it's challenging conversations and being able to navigate those to see if the expectations of that client will actually mesh well with what we can personally deliver with our team. And sometimes that's not in alignment. So it's easier to let that relationship go up front than to maintain that relationship and work it through the process. So really having that system for how are we starting that relationship? It's kind of like that first date. Like we're going to wine and dine. We're going to wine and dine each other. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to learn about each other. And then we're going to continue to date throughout that process. So that's the first thing. And we are really big on our follow-up. So just before they even come in, we're sending them information about our team. We're sending them a packet for them to review. We're thanking them proactively for their time. If we have the opportunity and time allows, we'll send them a card in the mail, just thanking them for taking an appointment with us before we've even gotten to the door. And so that's just setting the precedence for what to expect when we come. And it's so fun because we'll go on a listing appointment and there's our little card. It's sitting right on the table with all of our information that we sent ahead of time. I don't know. And I just know it clicks. So it's awesome. And then when we're in that client experience and now we're showing homes, or we're preparing for the listing process. It's really about the communication piece. I always tell our clients, and we teach our agents, that let them know what's going to happen before it happens. Remind them that it's happening when you're in the moment. And then after it's happened, recap that and let them know what's going to happen next. So it takes a lot of that stress and anxiety out of the brain or the mind of our clients, because they feel like they're aware, they're prepared, they understand. It's very, very helpful, and it maintains that baseline for how that process is going to go. And then once we're in contract, so we have a really great support team. Our operations side is very systematic, and we are constantly touching base with our people throughout that process. When they're in contract, we're letting them know, hey, inspections are first. Here's what to expect if you're a buyer. Here's what to expect if you're a seller. We provide them with different tools, whether that's, an example of a home inspection, so that they know when they get that 60-page report of everything that's wrong with the house that they just fell in love with, that it's normal and that's okay. So it alleviates some of the conflict that we feel during that process. And then sellers, really being honest with them and upfront about what they need to do to help prepare the house for sale. I've learned that if we don't have the right conversations and we don't set the right expectations based on the condition or the price for the market, right out of the gate, we're letting them down. And we're setting kind of a negative trajectory for how this relationship is going to go. So being honest, that's where it comes back to being honest. Now, navigating that conversation in a way where you feel like you're heard, and you kind of help them self-realize things that need to be done in order to get the house prepared, that's a skill. So reading your people for that. And then we call our clients every week. So whether you're active on the market or you're in contract, you're getting a touch from our team every single week, whether there's an update or not, just saying, hey, how are you? Do you need anything? Do you have enough flyers? Do you have any questions? Being proactive, because they probably do have a question. And if they don't, that's great. Even if we don't have an update and we're just waiting for appraisal to come back and there's no new news to share, just saying, hey, how are you doing? Just calling to check in on you. Wanted to let you know that I'm thinking of you going into the weekend. Is there anything that I can help you with? And they just appreciate that call, taking the time. And then once we're closed, and we have really great agents, we allow them to kind of get creative on their closings and how they want to celebrate with their clients. We have one agent, when we close, she wraps their door.
Gift wraps.
With a big old bow. And so when they walk up to their new home, they just like melt. Because that's the experience. They walk up to their new home, they have a big bow on the front door. There's usually a card in it that talks about how great they were to work with and how we really appreciate them, and that we want this relationship forever. And that's what the raving fan experience is about. We also have a couple other different gifts that are really more personal to our team. So, we have a local company that's called the Candle Lab. And we went one day and we created our own Millennium group scent. And it's called a welcome home candle. And so we get to support the community. It's a local business. We created something specific that's to Millennium Group for our clients. We're also avid, well, I should say he is, loves to cook. So we have little cutting boards that say happiness is homemade, just kind of tying things together, but celebrating with them when they close, and then making sure that we're staying connected with those people. We don't want our clients to feel like we're just in the transaction and then we're out. And then we'll talk to you 5 to 7, maybe 10 years. I think the average is 10 years every time someone sells a house. So we want to make sure that we stay in relationship with them throughout this. I know right now there are so many tools that are digital that can help support our personal relationships, not replace them. So I always want to emphasize that, because I know people get distracted on Facebook, or they send emails, or they send Instagram, whatever that looks like. It's never going to replace that personal relationship. So every quarter we pick up the phone, we call our people, just check in, how you doing? And that's really been driving a lot of referrals for our business, because we continue to stay in relationship with them and their spheres. And it allows us to grow our business. In the last 5 years, we have grown from just the 2 of us to a whole team. And 70% of our business comes from our database.
Yeah.
We don't pay for online leads, except command. Facebook ads, I think, is the one thing that we're playing with right now. But it allows us to stay in a relationship, and they want their friends and their coworkers and their family members to experience what they experienced when they worked with us. And so we tend to take on a lot of second-time clients that maybe started off with someone else and then ended up with us through referrals. So we're just constantly staying in relationship. I would challenge you guys to put your systems together as to what that looks like for the business that you run. Where does most of your business come from? What does that look like for you? Are you a luxury agent? Do you focus specifically in a certain area? How can you serve that community? Or do you focus on first-time home buyers and that's your bread and butter? And what does that customer experience look like for them?
So we had about 10 minutes left. I'm going to go through a couple of things that we do that I think are decent strategies, right, that you can apply today. And it's going to be fast. So if you have a pen and paper, or maybe this is recorded, whatever. So to highlight some of the stuff Rachel just talked about, consistency, right? If I know exactly what I'm going to get, am I likely to go back? Yes. Think of your favorite restaurant. It might be more expensive than another one, but if you know exactly what you're going to get, whether that's level of service, whether that's level of, food, how great your meal is, right? Whether that's ambiance, whether that's the mood, you know what to expect, you know exactly what you're going to get, you're more likely to go back. So if we sell somebody a house and they have a great experience, and then they want to do an investment property or a duplex, or their significant other, somebody in family or in relationship, they're going to be like, yeah, talk to them. This is exactly what we get every time we talk to them. That's consistency, that's dependable, right? So with that in mind, we talked about recaps, right? This is a huge it's a huge tool, and it takes a little bit of effort, right? Recap every conversation in an email, okay? And here's how we learned that. I read a few articles over time that said, on average, someone in the service industry, a waiter or waitress, their tips will go up by 17% when they repeat your order back to you. Apply that to what you do. Send recap emails. Guys, these people don't speak real estate for starters. They forgot half of what you said that didn't make sense because they were trying to think of the sentence you said before. They got in the car. They're arguing about bedrooms and bathrooms. Like, they forgot almost everything. Plus, they have questions that they forgot to ask. Stay in that relationship. Stay in dialogue. Send a recap email and say, hey, guys, I appreciate your time, whatever. It was just, I wanted to make sure there's a recap on some of the points. In case anything comes up down the road, feel free. Like, however you want to word it. Send recap emails. They will be so grateful, okay? That's not something that Jonathan created. I stole that from the service industry. I just applied it to our business, right? And it's worked. Thank you cards, right? Like, I think in my head, a good agent sends thank you cards. I don't think many agents do, but I think a good agent, an average agent, should send a thank you card, right? So Rachel and I, we don't try to reinvent the wheel. We're not creating a new home buying system, an iBuyer app, like none of this nonsense, right? Keep it simple, stay in relationship. All we do is take what we think is good service and try to make it a little bit better. So what does that look like? Practical application, thank you cards. I think if we're competing, I mean, naturally we send thank you cards, but how did we make it better? I send it the moment I schedule the appointment. Okay? Which means it's gonna get there usually before I do. Now that could be with a vendor, that could be with a source of business, that could be direct to a client, could be any of those things. And what that would look like, it would be like, hey, Michael, I just wanted to thank you. You know, I understand your time potential are very valuable. Thank you for the conversation today and sharing a little bit more about your goal to sell your house. We're looking forward to our appointment Wednesday, 6 o'clock sharp. We'll see you then, and you know, hope we can do our best to help serve your needs, like whatever it looks like. So now I don't call to confirm, because I just sent a thank you card reiterating it, when and where, and I'm going to be there. I don't need to call and confirm, right? The whole point of an appointment is to know where to be and when. So I send a thank you card. I had the appointment. Their decision is made before they get a thank you card from another agent, if they even do.
Do you find, real quick, do you find that, because, appointment cancellation is always a challenge, especially when, when you're booking, hey, we can't do this Wednesday, let's do next Wednesday. And by the time you get to next Wednesday, they're like, you know what, this doesn't work either. Like, let's just push it out. Like, do you find that with that piece, like, it's harder for people to cancel because you're like, God, like, this guy sent me snail mail?
I do, right? I think setting a solid appointment, solidifying your appointment is a skill too, right? We can talk about that in another time. I also think that it does kind of breed the accountability because, Michael, I think I'm setting the tone as a professional, right? If I'm setting the tone and it's super casual, laid back, now don't get me wrong, because I do set some soft appointments for some challenging people, right? But when I set the tone, they're like, no, this guy, he means business, right? He's serious. If I set a very flaky, casual, yeah, no problem, we'll talk about it, we'll have a beer, that kind of stuff, like, are they going to stick to that? Are they going to take me serious as a professional? Mm-hmm. So I think the message that you set in your level of professionalism might help that too. But you're right. But here's the thing, guys. We lead it, right? So I would want to set a strong appointment, and I would want to represent myself very well, better than any other agent that they're going to talk to. And I would hope that makes them less likely to cancel the appointment because they are motivated, and hopefully we talked about that. But it's not perfect. I mean, people are going to cancel. Things are going to come up. Yeah. It's going to happen. Yeah. So nothing that I'm telling you, nothing that we're sharing is like foolproof or 100%. It's just about waiting the averages to fall in your favor. Right. So the thank you card, it's just kind of like who we are and how we're different, but we really didn't change anything. We just changed when it was sent in a little bit of what it said, right? Another one is exceptions. Guys, this is crazy, but I'm going to tell you for real. Exceptions do not equal service. They equal problems. What do I mean? Wow. You ever have a client that's like, well, just put it on their press remedy. They can say no. If they say no, it doesn't matter. We just want to ask, so we asked. You're just opening the door for problems, right? Because exceptions to your system will compromise your level of service. So do your best to minimize them. And that is challenging because that means you have to tell your client no. But when it comes from the right place, that's okay because you're educating them. But we know that we want that deal. We need that deal. This is the only deal we have to have that deal. I can't tell my client no. What if they leave me? That's all up here.
Especially in a market like this, we have clients where their house isn't even on the market, but they want to go look at other homes. And we have a home sale contingency. So how do you say no to that? You have to. We understand you're excited. We want this new home for you as well. However, until we're on the market and we are in contract, we are not in a position to compete at this price point. And I don't want you to go out there and fall in love with all these homes that we're not ready to buy. So I'm not going to show you any new homes until your home goes into contract because that's what will now be available for you to purchase.
Yeah, so we want to minimize these one-off scenarios because in our heads, we think that we're getting good service. But what happens is if you have 10 clients you're working with and each one has an exception, you don't have systems. It's impossible, right? So we have to be disciplined enough to kind of stick to our guns and make sure that comes across in the communication. And as long as you're communicating what is in it for them and why, then we should not have any fear swirling around a disagreement with a client. Embrace it as an opportunity to strengthen your relationship and strengthen your role as their advisor, because that's exactly what that is. Okay. And then one other thing that I had written down was you heard Rachel mention it a lot. Relationship, right? I learned this from a lender when I was brand new in the business. This guy called me, and I use this testimony all the time. He called me every Monday and every Friday, every Monday and every Friday, every Monday and every Friday, and I never answered. I just didn't. If I didn't need him, it didn't matter, right? I was off doing something else. I was trying to find a deal, really. But when I was in an open house on Sunday, somebody came through unrepresented. They didn't have a pre-approval. Guess who I thought of? Guess who I called? That lender. Why? Because regardless of what I gave him, whether my time, a lead, a referral, I answered, he showed up. He was reliable. He was consistent. So when I needed something or somebody on the spot, I needed somebody reliable. I didn't need the best interest rate, right? I didn't need a 10-day close, all this stuff. I needed somebody that was reliable, that was ready. So I say that because we're in relationship with our people, guys. We don't buy Zillow leads. We don't have a subscription to Sync. We don't do anything on the internet. Our business truly is organic. It truly is. Okay. And so I share that because we're in relationship with these people. Back to what I was doing in the beginning. When you think about a good experience, when you think about good customer service, think about a healthy relationship. Is it communication? Is it good experiences? Is it good memories? Everything that we talked about in the beginning. How do I nurture these relationships? Because if I just look at somebody for a transaction, it'd be very hard to build a long-term relationship or a long-term sustainable business. Okay. But if I'm reliable, if I show up all the time and say, hey, Mike, I'm ready. You let me know when you are. Hey, I'm ready. You let me know when you are. They're not going to get sick of you. They're going to be like, okay, I will. And then they're going to be like, damn, you reached out to me for like a year and a half. I'm finally ready. Let's do it. Okay. And then that feels good. But I'm attached to the activity because I can control that. I'm not attached to the results that I get. Because if I'm emotional about the results that I get, this is going to be a very tough business and you will forever be on the roller coaster, right? So control what you can control, which is the activity, and fuel, feed, nurture those relationships. You guys all have it in the palm of your hands. You have it in your office. You have it in between your ears. You have it in your leadership. It is all there. And if there's anything that we could do or share to help you, by all means, we are forever indebted to Scott. And he has been an incredible help to us in our business over the last 5 years. And that means a lot. So anything that we could do to share, help, or whatever, please let us know. I think that's kind of all we got.
And we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for having us. And if there's any last minute questions, just feel free to
Yeah, you can fire away.
Fire away.
Yeah.
Hope it helped.
Any questions from the group? That was incredible, guys. Thank you. I have a lot of really good notes. I'll share them out with everybody on the Facebook group. But a couple things that really stood out to me, and I just want to make sure I'm, picking up what you're putting down in the right way. But one of the things that stood out was specifically around like the order taking versus relationship building. If we don't have a system to put people through, like there are people who could come in and out of our lives very quickly, be a transaction, but be a one and done. But if we hold ourselves accountable to our system, we give ourselves the highest likelihood of building a real relationship, even with the now business, right?
Oh yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
That was better well said than my 30-minute rendition.
One other thing that stood out is that we all already have a system. It's just the consistency with which we use it, and that consistency is dependent on how many exceptions we make. Right?
Yeah,
So
it's Mike. I always I have this weird like analogy that it's like athletics, basketball, right? If anybody's a basketball player, it's like shooting free throws, right? When you're practicing your free throws, you don't shoot every fourth one with like your left hand. You just don't.
Yeah.
Right? So you practice like you play, you develop your rhythm, you have a system, your routine, and then that's how you work it.
2 dribbles, a spin, and a shoot.
Yeah, like just because you miss one, you're not like, oh, between the legs, hey, let's see if that worked. Oh, it doesn't work that way. How are you going to grow? How are you going to get better without the foundation, right? So the system. Go ahead.
It's a great analogy. Balance, elbow, eyes, follow through, right? System.
I got an all-star basketball player on my team that's teaching me all that because I was terrible.
Nice.
I wasn't a good basketball player.
Nice. And one other thing, and I would be interested to hear about like for your systems specifically, but it seems like there's a large portion of the customer experience that you're creating without having to physically be in front of them, right? Whether it's the recap email, the thank you note, the drip, like things that don't physically involve you, your time, maybe just a little bit of energy or resource, but like how much of that experience is that like a good cross check on my customer service experience? If like how much of it is dependent on me physically being in front of, well, people love me, right? Like, oh, I'll go be in front of everybody. Does that make
Well,
sense?
as your business grows, you can only do so much. So
Right.
that's where the digitally enhanced really helps maintain those relationships. To me, technology doesn't create relationships. It's there to maintain them. And so that's okay to use your tools and your systems. Right now, I mean, at this point in my career, I got to drop a voicemail to 250 people because I know that I'm not probably going to have time to call all of them individually. So now I start to separate my database. So my top 20% will get personal calls from me. And then the rest of them, they will get touches, they will hear my voice. It just may look a little bit differently. And I'm going to use that technology to help support that relationship.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
So yeah, like, so we, you have the opportunity to say, hey, these are people who have bought with me more than once or referred me more than twice, right? And then they become they get a different, like an enhancement on the system, right? Same base, right? Couple different tweaks here and there. And
So-
again, we probably already do that with some people. It's just the ones we like the most.
Right. Yeah.
The best relationships, right, Mike? Because I think sometimes we get caught up, like a new agent in open house thinks that they got to convert everybody. But why don't we focus on the 3 really good conversations that we had instead of stressing ourselves out about the 5 crappy conversations and the people that blew right by us, right? It is odd because we think in this all or nothing mentality. So when we're talking about the relationships, if somebody's giving you a referral, go back to the well, feed that relationship, right? Don't worry about the 10 other people that are part of your database that have never given you one and try to force them to. Go back to what's working for you, fuel that, be that. If they've done it once, they're more than likely to do it again. And that is how you grow the relationship out of what's working. We don't need this all-inclusive type mentality. We need to work what is working for us.
I like that a lot. Work what is working for you.
Yeah,
Right.
Work out of your strengths. Don't fix your weaknesses.
Yeah, what you work will work for you. That's exactly what I tell our team. What you work will work for you. If that's writing cards, if that's doing letters, if that's follow up, I mean, anything in the world. Because what we're saying, Mike, is it takes a little bit of effort. And it takes a little bit of faith that even though that transaction isn't going to come right now and that effort is not going to yield a direct result, we know what we're doing and more importantly, why we're doing it. And that will bridge the gap to the result. So our responsibility, 2 things, no matter what, are within your control, your attitude and your effort, period.
I like that. I like it a lot. Guys, this has been great. I mean, I officially have more notes from your conversation than I did from Jeff Glover's last week. So, I don't know if it's, quality and quantity, but damn it, you hit the quantity right on the head.
Hopefully.
Well, next time, hopefully we'll be able to be in person.
I know, we wanted to come up. Scott promised us dinner. We were going to Red. I mean, like, we had the whole thing. We were going to bring our lead admin up to meet some of the staff and the team up there. Danielle, who was a huge help in setting all this up with me. Just correspondence. I don't know if I've met her in person yet, but yeah. So in the future, we'd love to do it again, man.
Well, yeah, we'll get you in the cycle for as soon as we're in person. You guys have been fantastic, and again, we really appreciate you stepping in here and helping us out. This is great.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
We are your Columbus people, so we're here to help you guys too with your referrals.
Absolutely, yes, you are. I appreciate that.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. All right, guys.
If anybody has questions, Mike, share our information.
Yeah, I'll share it in my follow-up today. That's awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
week.
You too. Bye-bye.
See ya.